guys, it's Kesara, and today we're going to be tier ranking all of the books that I read in 2024. This is the season that I feel like I'm always looking for tier ranking videos to watch. I even got into watching some of my old videos 4 or 5 years ago, and I really like watching these videos. I kind of wish that I had continued making videos like this throughout the time so that I could rewatch them, but I figured it's never too late to start, so this is my video for 2024. For the purposes of this video, I have left out all of my nonfiction, but other than that, all of the fiction books that I've read in 2024 are in this video, so I hope you enjoy. So these are all of the books that I've read this year that we're going to be ranking. There's a lot more of them than I was expecting. These are the tiers we're gonna rank them. I kept the same tiers that I had like in the past. I think I changed like one thing. Instead of like the young me loved it section, I put had potential instead because it's just for this year. Obviously, the young me did not read these books. Also, just for the record, like God tier and demigod tier are like new favorite books of all time. Don't expect to have too many in those categories. So if I say a book is great, that's basically it's a 5-star read and I would recommend you read this book. If I say it's good, that's closer to a 4-star read. Okay is like a 3-star, and then bad will be like a 1 or 2-star book. This is in no particular order whatsoever, so I might hop around a little bit. So the Atlas Paradox is first, but I'm gonna go back to the first book in the series, which is the Atlas 6. And I read this in January, so it was a while ago. So I'm not sure how I would feel about it now, but I enjoyed it so much back in January. I didn't expect to love this book half as much as I loved it. So because of that, I'm gonna put it in great. I do think I ended up liking the first book more, at least it's more memorable to me than the other 2 books in the series. I still think the Atlas Paradox would be in great to me. Good, great, good, great. I'm gonna put it in good. And then Atlas Complex, I'm actually gonna put it in had potential because I didn't love the ending of the series, but I still think it was good. Like, I think there was a potential for this to be like a phenomenal series and like a new favorite, and it didn't quite get there, and part of that is because of the Atlas Complex. We have Butcher and Blackbird, which I did not talk about too much on my channel. I only really posted videos in like January and then like starting again like in the later half of the year, like October through December, and I read Butcher and Blackbird in like May. So like in the middle of that like huge slump, I want to say it's a guilty pleasure, but I don't think it is because I had a lot of problems with this book. I think this is also a had potential because the concept of it is so like there's so much potential this book had, and I feel like it was held back by the fact that it was a romance novel, because this is a romance novel about 2 serial killers who have their meet cute when they both go to kill the same person, which I think the concept is just so good. And while I enjoyed the book thoroughly, I wanted some more of the darker side of it, and I felt like it always just cut that dark side of it with humor or other things just to keep that romance crowd happy, if you know what I mean. And then we have Before the Memory Fades, which I read 2 books in this series, and I'm gonna be honest, I do not remember which is which. Like, they both kind of blend together in my mind. One of them was super devastating, and the other one was just, it was good, but I don't know which one was which. So I'm gonna put them both in good. I think Before the Memory Fade was the one I liked more. I think that was the one that was devastating, but Before We Say Goodbye was good as well. Then we have Children of Time. I wasn't sure if I was gonna have a God tier book, but I think Children of Time is a God tier book. I wasn't expecting that because it's sci-fi. I mean, I like sci-fi, don't get me wrong. I love sci-fi. I don't read it that much. Like, I read sci-fi as much as I read like historical fiction, or as much as I probably read romance novels more than I read sci-fi. And obviously fantasy is like, that's my go-to reading. I think Children of Time is a God tier book. Like, it was so mind-blowingly good. I love the aliens, like the spider experiment thing. I love their colony. I like the world building in this. It was fantastic. Then we have Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear. So this is a book that came out this year, but I got an arc of it, so I got to read it last year. I thought it was solidly good. I really, really enjoyed this. Probably, yeah, we're gonna put it right there. It was definitely a good addition to the Wayward Children series. Next is Funny Story by Emily Henry, and I'm gonna put this in guilty pleasure because I love Emily Henry's books so much, but I always kind of forget them afterwards. So I enjoyed it a lot, but I feel like I don't remember enough from it So guilty pleasure, definitely. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I really love this book, and I'm trying to decide if it was a guilty pleasure or if it was actually a great book. And I didn't give it 5 stars though. I don't think maybe I did. I don't know. I'm gonna put it in guilty pleasure because I feel like I should have given it 5 stars, but like for guilty pleasure reasons, so leave it there. Then we have Dawn Shard by Brandon Sanderson, and this one was a good book. Like, this was a solidly good inclusion in the Stormlight Archive. It's probably one of my favorite novellas or the smaller novels, so really enjoyed it. Leather and Lark, oh my gosh. Like, this is the sequel to Butcher and Blackbird. The reason why I will not continue on with the series was really hoping that maybe Leather and Lark would like do what Butcher and Blackbird failed to do, but it took everything that I did not like about Butcher and Blackbird and did not include the parts that I liked about it. And then the audiobook is just, it's just awful. The audiobook is so bad. Do not pick up the audiobook. The sounds, just, I can't. It was bad. Maybe if I had the physical book, I would have liked it better, but I don't think so. But still, I couldn't. Then we have The Librarian of Crooked Lane series. I only finished the first 2 books in the series, and then I DNF'd the 3rd book, and I will not be continuing on with the series. I think the first one, honestly, the first one was kind of and then the second one was kind of I was thinking about giving the first one like an okay, because it did intrigue me. I like getting to know the world building a little bit, but it wasn't that good. I was on vacation, I just needed something to read, and it was there. We have My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. This was quite good. It's not at all the type of book that I normally would read, so like it's not gonna be like too far up for me. I think I'm excited to read the rest of the series, but I think I'm just gonna leave it in good for now. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it in good. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but I do want to see where the rest of the series goes. While I'm a very much a character-driven reader, there was still something missing for me, if that makes sense. Then we have Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. This was a reread. Honestly, I shouldn't include it in this. I would put it in demigod tier. I think the Stormlight Archive is like a fantastic series. I think it's a seminal, like, defining series in the fantasy genre, especially in modern fantasy. But this is probably my least favorite of the books that I've read so far. I'm still waiting for Brandon Sanderson to like really write me something that like blows my mind as much as like the Mistborn trilogy had. I'm dropping it down. I'm putting it in great. I feel bad, but I'm putting it in great. It's a solid 5-star read. Like, if it was Words of Radiance, I would put it in demigod, but Oathbringer is like just a solid 5-star book for me. Mort by Terry Pratchett. Okay, I dropped it in Had Potential, and am I gonna leave it in Had Potential? I think I'm gonna leave it in Had Potential. I'm gonna put it in front of Atlas Complex. I wanted to love this book so much. Everything about the concept of this book, I should love, but the execution of it, I didn't love. I didn't love the humor, which Terry Pratchett has a lot of humor, and I feel like if you can't like the humor, can't like the book. At least for Discworld, like there were like sections of the humor that I ended up liking, but for the most part, it didn't really work for me. But I love all the concepts and the world building. Everything else is so good, so it had so much potential to be like a new favorite, and it kind of fell flat. Part of Your World, I feel like I should have, let me put Yours Truly. I should have done these when I did Just for the Summer. I think these are guilty pleasure books for me as well. So I'm gonna put Part of Your World and Yours Truly. I didn't love Yours Truly that much, but the rest of them I did. I think part of the reason too is like I was in a little bit of slump when I read Yours Truly, but I did really still love those books. Here, One Perfect Couple. So this is a different kind of guilty pleasure, but I loved One Perfect Couple so much. Ruth Ware is definitely a guilty pleasure author for me. I can understand that her books are not like knock it out of the park amazing, but I love her atmospheres, I love her writing style, and specifically the audiobook narrator that she uses for all of her books. I absolutely love the audiobook narrator. So I end up just loving her books, regardless of if they're like amazing or not. I just end up loving her books all the time. So I will admit that is a guilty pleasure for me, and a very completely different type of guilty pleasure than the romances. It's a thriller, but this one is like a reality TV show thriller where like this real couple goes onto this island, but then there's like a storm that comes, like it's basically a hurricane, but they're on this like island kind of stranded, and like people start dying. It was great. I enjoyed every second of it. Then we have Bonesmith by Nikki Papreto, and this one I think was a solidly good book. It's a YA fantasy. It has interesting world building because the main character is like a bonesmith, and like which means she can control bones. I will say like, there was one aspect of the world building that I didn't like, but it didn't affect my enjoyment of the first novel. It did affect my enjoyment of the second novel, but my enjoyment of the first novel, I don't think it affected it at all, and I didn't end up enjoying it a lot. I do think the romance in it was fun, so I enjoyed it quite a bit. Let me find the second novel. Ghostsmith, I'm gonna put in had potential. Like I said, I had difficulty with suspension of disbelief with this duology, which doesn't normally affect me, but I feel like if that's affecting me as a fantasy reader, like someone who primarily reads fantasy books, then there's something missing in the world building that needs to be addressed, and it really did affect my enjoyment of Ghostsmith. I still think, like, plot-wise, character-wise, and all the other things, it was really good, but there was just something missing that I needed. Then we have System Collapse by Martha Wells. I love Murderbot. I love it so much, but I feel like we got what we needed from, like, the beginning of the series, and I'm, like, every time I pick up the next one, I'm just kind of like, it's fine, but, like, I'm not getting more from it. I enjoyed it. It was at the beginning of the year, so I honestly don't remember it that well. I'm just gonna put it in okay. I think I gave it a better rating than that when I originally read it, but I feel like that's just how I feel now, almost 12 months later. Actually, 12 months later, because I read it last January. Next, we have House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. This is not a guilty pleasure. Sarah J. Maas, I don't know why I keep trying the book, expecting to love it. Well, I know why, right? It's because of A Court of Mist and Fury, because the ACOTAR series, the very first book in the series, A Court of Thorns and Roses, absolutely hate it. Like, I deplored that book so much. But everyone said book 2 gets better, so I read A Court of Mist and Fury, and I loved it. I loved it so much. And it's like, it's definitely my favorite Sarah J. Maas book. So now I keep expecting, like, even if I didn't like the first book in the series, I'm hoping to like the next book or the third book or whatever. And House of Sky and Breath, I got through like 80% of this book hating it the whole time. I don't like any of her characters, by the way. Like, but the thing is, I didn't like any of her main characters in her previous books either. So the fact that I didn't like Bryce, like, didn't deter me, because I did enjoy some of the other characters. But I love the ending. That is what happens to me all the time. I feel like with her books is I don't enjoy the majority of the book, but then I love the ending, so it makes me want to read the next book in the series. And this one also ends on a cliffhanger. So, I don't have potential. No, I feel like it didn't have potential, but somehow made me like it anyway. But it's not a guilty pleasure. I'm gonna go with okay. We're gonna go with okay. If this was the other one, Court of Flame and Shadow, I might go with but I did end up like, well, I didn't even finish Court of Flame and Shadow because I have 9 hours left in the audiobook, and I feel like she's gonna do something to make me like her ending, and I've read this entire book like hating it, and I don't want to like it at this point. So welcome to the Hum Young Dong Bookshop. This is a cute story. It's so much fun. That being said, I do think it's just okay. Like, it is definitely like a cozy, but it's like more contemporary novel. It was fun to read. It was an audiobook, so it's just fun to have in the background, and like when I'm like stressed and stuff, it's like, it's just good vibes. Let's put it that way. Okay, so we have Defy the Nights. I'm gonna put the other books in the series as well. Destroy the Day was after Defend the Dawn. In the series, my favorite one of the series was Defy the Night. I enjoyed it. This is a like YA, like heavy romance, like fantasy series, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember that much. I believe this is a retelling. I don't know if it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling or something else. I forgot, but I believe it's meant to be a retelling. Don't care for retellings, but I did enjoy this book quite a lot, so I'm gonna put Defy the Night in good. Like, it was a solidly good book, but I did not enjoy the other two quite as much as I loved the first one. They were okay reads. I enjoyed them. I liked them for what they were, but they're not going to be like new favorites of mine. Then we have Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. Where's Ruthless Vows? Okay, let's put it here. I enjoyed these a lot more than I was expecting. I think part of the reason I enjoyed this so much is I went in with very low expectations, because these were like really hyped books, which I found that if a book is really hyped on BookTube, I don't always love it, and it's romantasy, so I didn't expect to enjoy it quite as much as I did. I think at the time I rated them 5 stars and I was like, this is amazing, and I don't agree with that anymore, but I still think they're solidly good books. Are they guilty pleasures? I don't think they're quite guilty pleasure level, but I think they're solidly good books. I think I liked Divine Rivals more, and I mean, if I'm putting it the same level as like Bonesmith, I would probably put Ruthless Vows in that same tier. Yeah, I think that's pretty good where I would put them. Like with the beginning being like the best if we're looking at that's how I rank them within tiers as well. I have a lot of just good books. I mean, solid 4-star books are good, right? I think part of the reason why I don't have more like just okay or like bad books is because I've gotten a lot better of just DNFing books that I do not want to read. So that's what happens. Then we have Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. This is volume 11. So I'm like behind on this now. I don't remember that much from it. I love Saga. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love Saga, but I feel like I'm gonna wait till like more of it's out because I feel like I don't get enough when I just read like one volume. And I read this like 12 months ago, so I don't remember that much of it. I think it was good. I remember liking it, but I think I needed more than, like I said, one volume. Or maybe it was just the plot of this particular one that I didn't love as much as like the previous ones. I'm gonna put it in okay. Saga as a full series I think is like a great series, but this particular volume just didn't speak to me that much. Two Twisted Crowns. Let me see One Dark Window. Where's One Dark Window? Did I not include One Dark? Oh, here it is. Okay, so let's put it with Two Twisted Crowns because 2 books in the same series. I enjoyed One Dark Window way more than I enjoyed Two Twisted Crowns. But that being said, it's not really my cup of tea. I think I'm gonna go with Had Potential for One Dark Window. I feel like I was hoping that Two Twisted Crowns would build on the potential that One Dark Window had because I liked the world building and I liked the direction the story was going, but I didn't like out of this world love One Dark Window the way I was hoping to. Well, I wasn't really hoping to. Like I went into it with pretty low expectations, to be honest, but like it exceeded those expectations and I felt like it had a lot of potential. And then I was hoping that Two Twisted Crowns would like realize that potential, but it didn't. I feel like there was a lot more that I didn't like about Two Twisted Crowns than I did One Dark Window. Was it okay? Like, I mean, parts of it I did really love. There are some aspects of Two Twisted Crowns that I really loved, but there was a lot of aspects that I'm gonna put it in eh. Like, I feel bad because I did enjoy this book a lot more than that ranking seems to just suggest, but there was just so much about this book that I actively did not like that I can't put it any higher than that. Then we have The Serpent and the Wolf by Rebecca Robinson, and I enjoyed this so much. This is definitely going in the guilty pleasure, the very front of the guilty pleasure tier for me. I want to put it in great so bad. Like, I want to, but I know, like, it's just because this book felt like it was, like, made for, like, the things that I would specifically love that I ended up loving it so much. I did a whole review on this book, by the way, like, right after I read it, and I ended up giving it 5 stars. I've since knocked it down to 4.5 stars because I understand that I was just, like, in a book high when I finished it, but I still loved it so much. And also, just, like, the experience of reading it, and it worked for me so much. This is a romantasy series, but it's like an enemies to lover, like arranged marriage romantasy book, and it's set in like a high fantasy world. There's like political intrigue, not very well thought out political intrigue, but you know what? It's still good. So I loved it so much. Like I said, guilty pleasure. Guards. I should have done this when I did Mort because I read 2 books in the Discworld series. It was Guards and Mort. I enjoyed Guards a lot more than Mort. Like I enjoyed it so much. At the same time though, I still think I would just put it in good. There. Nah, better than Ruthless Vows. Yeah, I would put it in good. It was like a solidly good book. I kind of wish I had continued on with just like the guards arc instead of going to Mort, but I felt like Mort was just like more up my alley concept wise. But I think Guards, I mean, part of it, I think the audiobooks are great, so maybe that's why I ended up liking Guards more, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. We have The Will of the Many by James Islington, which was my favorite book of the year. But while I did love this book so much, being the first book in a series, I don't know how much I'll end up liking the series. I don't know if this is going to be a new favorite series of mine. It did put me in a book slump, which very few books put me in a book slump where like after I read it, nothing else just feels good. And that's how I felt with The Will of the Many. So, I mean, it's going to go pretty high. The question is, where in my 5-tier area is this gonna go? Because I want to put it in God. Like, I want to. And the fact that Children of Time is already in God tier makes me feel like I should put it in God tier. But that's honestly not how I feel. I'm putting it demigod. I feel like with more time upon a reread, this might end up being a god tier book, but I feel like I just have very different criteria for what a god tier fantasy book is versus like a god tier sci-fi. Because sci-fi is not like my main genre, I think it's easier for me to get a god tier sci-fi than it is for me to get a god tier fantasy, if that makes sense. But still, like, this was like my favorite book of the year. I enjoyed it so much, and I cannot wait for the next book in the series. Okay, then we have the Tainted Cup. The Tainted Cup is amazing, and it's gonna go up somewhere up here as well. I do think I did not love the Tainted Cup as much as The Will of the Many. I think it had a lot of potential to be amazing. I enjoyed reading it so much, but I think I'm just gonna put it in great. It feels weird to put it in front of the Stormlight Archive because the Stormlight Archive is amazing, but it's Oathbringer, so it's okay. And I mean, The Will of the Many is in demigods here in the so I can't say that much about it, but yeah, I think great is a good place for the Tainted Cup. Then we have The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black. So this is was it the finale or was it a duology? I think it was a duology. This is like a sequel series to Folk of the Air trilogy. Honestly, if I had not read the Folk of the Air trilogy and if I had not loved it as much as I did, I would have never picked up this book because I'm kind of over YA a little bit. I know I had a lot of YA on this list, but they're from authors that I love, just like Holly Black, again, is another author that I've read before and really loved. And it was okay. Yeah. Better than some of the, like, Defend the Dawn, Destroy the Day books. I'm surprised I like Sarah J. Maas more than Holly Black, but that's just how I feel about it. This time next year, so this is the last book that I read in 2024, and it was good. It was so much fun. When I was reading it, really was in this book, and I really enjoyed it. That being said, like 2 days after, I was trying to think about what happened in this book, and I had completely forgotten. I think I remember it better now, but I don't think it's that amazing of a book. I'm gonna put it in Guilty Pleasure because I enjoyed it so much, but I honestly don't know if I'm gonna read more books by this author or not. I think it was great for the time of year. The atmosphere was perfect because this book is set place during New Year's. I read it on the 31st of December, so it worked for me. Wayward by Emily Hartz. Now this book, I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember very much about. I enjoyed it. I thought it had an interesting atmosphere, but I didn't take away very much from it. So I think I'm just gonna put it in okay. I think that's a good slot. God Killer by Hannah Kaner. I enjoyed this so much more than I expected to. Like, I kind of did not expect very much from this book. And then, like, I ended up really enjoying the characters and really getting into the story. I do think I was hindered by the fact that I listened to the audiobook because I think this is the type of book that I would enjoy a lot more reading physically because it is, like, actually a solid high fantasy. And I think it was just, like, a solidly good book. So I'm gonna put it right behind Dawn Shard. Like, I think Dawn Shard was definitely better than this, but, like, it is right up there with, like, really solidly good fantasy books, in my opinion. Then we have A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. This is the book that made me so excited to read more books by T. Kingfisher. It was the first book I read by her, by the way. So, like, I mean, not surprising. I think Sorceress Comes to Call surprised me so much, and that's why I ended up loving it so much. But I still think, like, the characters were well done. Like, there was so much to love about this book, and the atmosphere was so good. It's a solidly good book, in my opinion. Let's put it there. I do think My Brilliant Friend is better written than it, but I love the atmosphere of this book so much. Yeah, I would put it there. Since I just did a T. Kingfisher book, let's go with Nettle and Bone next. And I liked Nettle and Bone more than I liked The Sorceress Comes to Call. I don't think I liked it that much more though. Yeah, I think I would also put it as a solidly good book. I think what works for me with Nettle and Bone was that it was just more original, if that makes sense. Like, A Sorceress Comes to Call was a retelling. I do think A Sorceress Comes to Call feels a little bit like how, like, Jane Austen would do if she wrote, like, dark fantasy novels. That's what I feel like that would be what Jane Austen would write, whereas Nettle and Bone felt like something kind of new and not as derivative, and that's why I liked it. But I like them both almost equally. Like, they were really solidly good books. Okay, then we have So Let Them Burn by Camilla Cole, and this one I would say had potential. Yeah, we'll go there. I really wanted to like this book so much, and I do think this book was hindered by the fact that I was reading The Will of the Many, like, at the same time, and then I ended up DNFing this book for a good portion of the year because of that reading slump that I was having with The Will of the Many. I feel like this book felt like the sequel novel. Like, I feel like it was going through middle book syndrome, even though it was the first book in the series, which is kind of like a weird thing to say, but I feel like there was a lot of, like, looking back on, like, the previous, like, the history and the last thing that happened in the book rather than like following the story where it is right now. And I kind of just, I wanted the previous book, like that prequel. I want a prequel to this book, if that makes sense. So it was fine. I think it had a lot of potential, but I didn't end up loving it as much as I had hoped to. When we have Listen for the Lie by Amy and Tara, is it a guilty pleasure or is it great? I mean, I did not give it 5 stars. I gave it 4.5 stars, but I enjoyed it so much. Like, this book reads half like a rom-com, half like a murder mystery, and it was all amazing. Like, I enjoyed this so much. I think the audiobook is definitely a must read. It was so much fun. Like, I think the main character was funny and witty, super self-deprecating. I loved like all the characters, like they're kind of like morally ambiguous, and I definitely got into the mystery side of it. So I'm gonna put it in guilty pleasure. Is it better than One Perfect? Yeah, I think it's better than One Perfect Couple. So yeah, it was definitely a guilty pleasure for me. I enjoyed it so much. Then we have The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. It's not a guilty pleasure. I don't think that could be a guilty pleasure book. Is it great? I mean, to an extent, it's a guilty pleasure. Yeah, I think part of the reason why I'm considering putting in guilty pleasure is because there are certain aspects of this novel that I know I'm partial to, that I'm way more likely to read a book if it has those aspects. For example, it's a portal fantasy. I absolutely love portal fantasies regardless of if they're good or not. Like, I mean, I'm reading the Wayward Children series even like years later. So like, obviously I like portal fantasies, and there are other aspects to it as well that I feel like I have a particular like liking for that. And the book did really, I'm gonna put it in great. I think it's a great book. I enjoyed it so much. And yes, there are certain aspects of this book that I specifically love, that like I specifically would look for in books. I think it was done well in this book in particular as well. So I think it's it's a great book, and I would recommend other people read it as well. Then we have Trust of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I read this book earlier in the year. I don't remember if I talked about this book. I probably haven't. I think the world building in this book is so interesting. I enjoyed like that aspect of it, which of course Brandon Sanderson is all about world building. But that being said, I was reading another book that was very similar to this at the same time, and I remember thinking like that I liked that book more, but this book had like a more interesting world. I mean, I think it was like was it a good book? I can't decide if I want to put it in good or had potential, because I think like it had a lot of potential that I wanted more from it, but I think it was also, I'm gonna put it in had potential, because I do think it was just missing something that I wanted from it, but I don't know what it was that it was missing, which is why I haven't yet read the rest of the Secret books, because everyone seems to love this one the most, or Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, which I want to get to, but the next for me to read is the Frugal Wizard's Guide, Handbook, whatever, that one, you know what I'm talking about, and no one seems to like that one, which makes me think I'm not gonna like it, so that's why I'm holding off. Next is The Future by Naomi Alderman. I don't remember this book, and that's like, I don't know when I read this book. It was sometime during the year, probably during my slump, and I don't remember it. I remember not hating it, but I don't remember liking it, so I guess it was okay. Like, I'm just gonna put it there. I feel like that maybe I'm not doing the book justice. I know I read it, but I don't remember anything about it. The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Thirst. This was cute. I enjoyed it so much. I feel like at a different time I might have liked it more, but I think part of the reason why I had some issues with it is that it's a cozy fantasy. So because it's cozy, like, it wanted to give me all the good vibes, and yet the headspace of the main character took away from that cozy aspect of the novel for me. So I ended up having some issues with that. I feel like I want to put it in had potential, because I love the vibe. It's all vibes, and I love the vibes, but I really wish that it was a different main character. Like, if it followed the love interest instead of the main character that it was. I don't know. I didn't love that headspace. Let's put it that way. And with it being cozy fantasy, I kind of want to like the headspace of the main character. The God of the Wood by Liz Moore. I think it was okay. I didn't find anything particularly great about it. It won, I think, for Best Mystery. The Goodreads Choice Award for Best Mystery for 2024. Kind of don't get. I think it was interesting family drama. I liked the ending. I like kind of like what it implied by the ending. I was just kind of bored by it for most of it. I never got into like the actual mystery of the novel, which I feel like with the thriller kind of won. Then we have Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is like one of my favorite books of the year, so obviously it's gonna be pretty high up. Okay, I don't know where to put it. It's not a guilty pleasure read. It's definitely not a guilty pleasure, but I don't think I haven't done my review on this yet. I will be getting to my review, but I'm still trying to figure out what I want to say in the review. To be honest, I'm still trying to figure it out because there is like one aspect of this book that I really love, but then I feel like a lot of the rest of the book I had complaints about. I had things that I didn't like about it that I wanted to like about it, but the part that I liked about it made up for all of the things that I didn't like about the book. And I feel like if this was historical fiction and not fantasy, this would be like knocking it out of the park for me. Like if this was more like speculative fiction and wasn't like actually had like magic systems and stuff like that, I would end up loving this book so much. It reminds me like of how I liked Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. Kindred is, it's not like sci-fi, it's like, but it's more like speculative because there's time travel, but it gave me something that I was missing from all of the books that I had previously read that I really wanted. And that's how I felt what Babel did as well. And yet, because it's fantasy, there are other aspects of this novel that I wanted to be developed better that just weren't. So I don't think I can put it in like demigod or god tier. I think I'm gonna leave it in great. I'm gonna put it right in the middle of great. I think that's a good place for it. But this is like one of my favorite books of the year, so like it's sad to put it just in great because I mean it should. I feel like it was so close. I mean, it definitely had potential, amazing, and then it was just great. Okay, then we have Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reed. Such a completely different like reading experience. I wanted to love this so much. I feel like I was a little hyped up for this one a little bit, and then it fell flat for me. I think this could have been as great as like Nettle and Bone or A Sorceress Comes to Call. Like I feel like it's on like it should be on the same level as those. And I read this like months and months before. Like I read this at the beginning of the year where Nettle and Bone and A Sorceress Comes to Call I read closer to the end of the year, but I didn't love it. I wonder if I reread it now, having loved those two, and this has like a similar atmosphere to those two, whether I would like it more. But I have to go with the experience I had, not the experience I think I should have had. So I'm just gonna put it in okay. I do think it was better than some of the other books that I've read in the okay tier, but I'm gonna put it at the front of the okay tier. And I think part of that is just like, I still remember the book fairly well, but I wanted to like the characters, and I like unlikable characters, but I still had issues with the characters. So then we have Mislaid in Parts Half Known by Shauna McGuire. So this is another book in the Wayward Children series I read at the beginning of last year. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember that much about this one. I mean, it was 12 months ago, so I wouldn't expect to remember that much of it, but I liked Drift in Currents Clean and Clear a lot more than I had liked Mislaid in Parts Half Known. I'm gonna go with okay. Yeah, let's go there. And last but not least, we have The Love of My Afterlife. And this book was so much fun. I'm definitely, am I gonna put it in guilty pleasure? Yeah, I'm gonna put it in guilty pleasure. It's the end of the guilty pleasure tier. I do think I did not like it as much as any of the other books in this guilty pleasure tier, but it was so much fun. Like, if you want like an actually funny rom-com, like this is the book to read. And I feel like the concept of it was quite interesting too, because in the very beginning, like the very first chapter, the main character dies, and then she meets like her guardian angel in the afterlife who gives her a second chance that if she could find her soulmate and kiss her soulmate in, I think it's like 7 days or 6 days or something like that, then she could come back to life. So it's a great concept, and I feel like it did have potential to be amazing, but even though it wasn't amazing, I still enjoyed it so much because it was just so funny. I loved like the humor in this book, so I ended up enjoying it quite a bit. So this is my final tier list. I am sad that there's not more in like the new favorites of all time, but I'm actually happy that I had as much as I did. I think it was overall a fairly good reading year considering I was in a slump for the majority of the year. Like I didn't read any books, I think, in March or May, or maybe it was June, like March or June. Like there were 2 months that I didn't read any books. In October, I only read 3 books. I had a rolling reading slump throughout the year, and yet I still found a lot of books that I enjoyed quite a bit. I really wish that I had more favorites of all time, and hopefully in 2025 I will. So that is all I have for today. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to support my channel. I have a goal of posting at least 1 video a week in 2025, so please consider subscribing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.